a function that is called a piecewise function. So that means it behaves differently depending on where you're looking at the function. And in the one that we have, it behaves as f of x equals negative 3x if the x values are less than negative 1. It's the constant function 0 if x equals negative 1. And it behaves as a quadratic function 2x squared plus 1 if x is greater than negative 1. Now what we're looking for here are the values at specific x values. So we have f of negative 1. So this means that x equals negative 1. And we go up here, and when x is negative 1, the value of the function is 0. So f of negative 1 equals 0. Then we have f of 0. So that means x is equal to 0. What y coordinate would go with that? Well, we have to determine, is x greater than negative 1? Or is it less than, is 0 greater than negative 1, or is it less than negative 1? Well, since 0 is greater than negative 1, we're going to use our third option down here. So this will be 2 times 0 squared plus 1. And of course, 0 squared is 0, and then times 2 is still 0. So our final value here is 1. F of 0 equals 1. On the third part, we're looking for f of 3. X equals 3, and we compare that x value. Is it less than negative 1, equals negative 1, or is it greater than negative 1? It's another example of an x that's greater than negative 1. So again, we use the definition of the function when x's are greater than negative 1, and we'll have 2 times, now our x is 3, and that's squared, and then we add 1. So 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18. We end up with 18 plus 1, which gives us 19 for the value of the function when x is 3. And our final one, we have x equals negative 3. So x, since negative 3 is less than negative 1, we're going to use the top definition, the top component of our piecewise function. So when x is negative 3, we'll have negative 3 times negative 3, and that gives me a value of 9. So be sure with these piecewise functions that you find the right piece of the function to use in evaluating the x value that's given. So look at the x value. For example, in this example, I looked at my x value. That was a negative 3. I went up to the description. Since negative 3 is less than negative 1, this is the part of the function that I'm going to use to find my value.